Alfonso Cahero, A Journey into Finance History. Chapter 75. Major Cybersecurity Breaches and Their Economic Costs, 2010s-2020s. High-profile cyber attacks highlight the importance of digital security. The first decade of the 21st century had seen the world connected like never before. The internet had become an integral part of everyday life, transforming how people communicated, conducted business, and accessed information. But with this connectivity came a new kind of threat, one that lurked in the shadows of the digital world. As the clock ticked into the 2010s, the reality of cybersecurity breaches became more apparent. The story begins in a bustling city where corporate skyscrapers pierced the sky and the hum of digital networks filled the air. This was the world where our protagonist, Mark Wallace, an experienced cybersecurity analyst, found himself facing the most challenging time of his career. Mark worked for a major financial institution, Global Bank Corp, which had always prided itself on its impenetrable digital defenses. Little did they know, a storm was brewing in the virtual realm. One morning, as Mark sipped his coffee and scanned through routine reports, an unusual spike in network activity caught his eye. It was subtle, almost too subtle, but enough to trigger his instinct. The hunt had begun. Mark quickly assembled his team. They delved deep into the bank's network, following the digital breadcrumbs left by an unseen intruder. The trail led them to an alarming discovery. A sophisticated malware had infiltrated their system, capable of siphoning sensitive customer data and financial records. The breach was unlike anything they had encountered before, designed with a precision that pointed to a highly skilled group of hackers. The implications were staggering. If the malware activated, it could compromise millions of accounts, leading to catastrophic financial losses and a collapse of trust in the banking sector. The clock was ticking, and Mark knew they had to act fast. With the support of his team and the backing of the bank's executives, Mark launched a counteroffensive. They deployed advanced detection systems, isolated infected segments, and worked around the clock to neutralize the threat. Days turned into sleepless nights, but slowly they began to regain control. As the crisis subsided, the bank issued a public statement acknowledging the breach and assuring customers that their assets were safe. The response was swift and decisive, but the economic impact was unavoidable. Stock prices dipped, and the bank faced hefty fines and compensation claims. The cost of the breach ran into hundreds of millions of dollars, a stark reminder of the financial stakes in the digital age. Mark's heroics didn't go unnoticed. His reputation soared, and he became a sought-after expert in cybersecurity circles. Yet, he knew this was just the beginning. The breach at Global Bank Corp was a wake-up call for the entire industry, highlighting the growing sophistication of cyber attacks and the need for robust digital defenses. In the fall of 2014, the world witnessed one of the most sensational cyber attacks of the decade. Sony Pictures Entertainment, a major player in the film industry, became the target of a cyber assault that would send shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. The attack began quietly, with employees noticing unusual behavior on their computers, but it soon escalated into a full-blown crisis. One morning, when employees tried to log in, they were greeted with a chilling image of a red skeleton and a message declaring the company had been hacked by a group calling themselves the Guardians of Peace. Sony's entire network was compromised. The hackers had stolen terabytes of data, including unreleased films, confidential emails, and sensitive employee information. They began leaking this data online, causing immense embarrassment and financial damage to the company. The breach's immediate fallout was devastating. Private emails between executives were made public, revealing unflattering opinions and secretive dealings. The leaks created a media frenzy, and relationships within the industry were strained. But the hackers weren't done. They issued threats against the release of Sony's upcoming film, The Interview, a comedy about a plot to assassinate the North Korean leader. The threats were taken seriously, leading to the cancellation of the film's theatrical release. The economic impact was significant. The breach cost Sony an estimated $35 million in IT repairs and security upgrades, not to mention the untold damage to its reputation and the loss of revenue from the delayed release of The Interview. The attack also highlighted the vulnerabilities in the entertainment industry, where digital assets were increasingly valuable and exposed. Behind the scenes, an international drama unfolded. U.S. intelligence agencies pointed the finger at North Korea, suggesting the hack was a retaliatory move against the film. The accusation led to heightened tensions between the two nations, adding a geopolitical dimension to the cyber attack. For Mark Wallace, now a prominent figure in the cybersecurity world, the Sony hack was another reminder of the evolving threats in the digital landscape. He was called in as a consultant to help Sony bolster their defenses and navigate the post-breach crisis. The experience reinforced his belief that no industry was immune to cyber attacks, and the need for vigilance and preparedness was more critical than ever. As Sony slowly recovered from the breach, the entertainment industry took note. Studios began investing heavily in cybersecurity, recognizing that the digital frontier was fraught with dangers. The Sony hack was a watershed moment, underscoring the far-reaching implications of cyber attacks and the economic costs they could inflict. In the summer of 2017, another colossal breach shook the foundations of the digital world. Equifax, one of the largest credit reporting agencies in the United States, fell victim to a cyber attack that exposed the personal information of approximately 147 million people. The breach was a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities inherent in systems that stored vast amounts of sensitive data. Mark Wallace, now leading his own cybersecurity firm, received an urgent call from Equifax executives. The breach had gone undetected for over 2 months, allowing hackers to exfiltrate names, social security numbers, birth dates, addresses, and even driver's license numbers. The scale of the breach was unprecedented, and the potential for identity theft and fraud was enormous. Mark's firm quickly mobilized, conducting a thorough investigation to understand how the breach had occurred. They discovered that the hackers had exploited a known vulnerability in Apache Struts, a widely used web application framework. The flaw had been disclosed months earlier, but Equifax had failed to apply the necessary security patch. The repercussions were immediate and severe. Equifax's stock price plummeted, losing over a third of its value in the weeks following the announcement. The company faced a barrage of lawsuits and regulatory scrutiny, culminating in a settlement that cost them around $700 million. Consumers were outraged, and trust in the company was shattered. Mark's team worked tirelessly to contain the breach and implement measures to prevent future attacks. They overhauled Equifax's security protocols, installed advanced threat detection systems, and conducted rigorous training programs for employees. The breach served as a harsh lesson in the importance of maintaining up-to-date security practices and the dire consequences of complacency. The Equifax breach had far-reaching economic impacts. Beyond the immediate financial losses and legal costs, the breach undermined consumer confidence in the entire credit reporting industry. Millions of individuals had to monitor their credit reports and consider credit freezes to protect themselves from potential fraud, a process that created additional economic burdens. For Mark, the Equifax breach was a sobering reminder of the ever-present threats in the digital age. It underscored the importance of proactive cybersecurity measures and the need for constant vigilance. As his firm continued to grow, he became an outspoken advocate for better security practices and regulatory oversight, emphasizing that the cost of inaction could be devastating. In May 2017, a global ransomware attack known as WannaCry spread like wildfire, infecting hundreds of thousands of computers across 150 countries within a matter of days. The attack crippled hospitals, banks, telecommunications companies, and government agencies, causing widespread chaos and financial losses. It was a stark illustration of the destructive power of ransomware and the vulnerabilities that could be exploited on a global scale. Mark Wallace's phone rang early one morning, rousing him from a restless sleep. It was a frantic call from a longtime client, a major hospital network that had been brought to its knees by the ransomware. Computers displayed a chilling message. Files had been encrypted, and a ransom of $300 in Bitcoin was demanded for their release. The hospital's ability to provide critical care was compromised, and lives were at stake. Mark immediately assembled his team, and they raced to the hospital's headquarters. The scene was chaotic, with staff unable to access patient records, schedules, or even basic communication systems. The ransomware had exploited a vulnerability in Microsoft Windows, one that had been disclosed months earlier by the NSA but not widely patched. The attack was indiscriminate, spreading through a worm that required no human interaction to propagate. Once inside a network, it moved laterally, encrypting files and demanding payment. Mark knew that paying the ransom was a last resort. There was no guarantee that the attackers would provide the decryption key, and it would only encourage further attacks.